Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I'm Ankita from NASSCOM. I'm back with the 23rd episode of the product management series. What are customers' unmet needs and how to fulfill them? Most of the time, the product managers are scratching their head with this question. Don't worry, every tricky problem has a solution, and our today's speaker is a master in this. I have with me Gopal Shenoy, an accomplished product executive with 20 plus years of product management experience in B2B and B2C companies in Boston, United States. He will share his thoughts on how exceptional product managers discover customers' unmet needs. So stay glued, listen, and learn from an expert. Two more things from my side. Stay curious, ask questions. Gopal will cater to most of them after his presentation. And do not forget to leave your feedback to help me better my future sessions. Welcome, Gopal, and thank you so much for accepting our request and agreeing to do a session straight from Boston. Over to you.
Thank you, Ankita. Good evening to everyone in India, and good morning to those attending from the US. My name is Gopal Shenoy, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to present at this NASSCOM webinar. And I would like to thank everyone who is attending for taking the time to attend this webinar. And I would like to thank NASSCOM for hosting me, specifically Atul Batra and Ankita Chauhan. Before we get started, I just want to give you a quick background on my career. I've been doing product management for 24 years. I have worked on direct-to-consumer, B2B2C, and SMB products, both at startups to high-growth companies. The revenues of these products have ranged from 10 million to 300 million US dollars. Customer base ranged from thousands to millions in the case of B2C products. I have personally done 500 plus customer visits or interviews in 10 countries. So based on all of this, I would like to share with you practical tips and techniques that I feel that you can all put to use if you want starting tomorrow. But before we get started on that, what I want to do is I want to level set on the role of product manager. For me, the success of this presentation would be that you walk away with a solid understanding of how to discover unmet customer needs. What are the things that you want to do while you're doing it? What are the things that you don't want to do based on my experience? And once you have done these customer interviews or discovered or got insights, how do you act on it such that you can actually develop products that will help your company make money? So first, let's level set on the role of product manager. The reason I want to do this is because the industry does not have a single definition of what a product manager does. And the tech industry is also well known for a lot of title inflation. You also have the titles of product manager and product owner, thanks to Agile, which I feel muddies the waters even more. So to make sure that everybody's on the same page, the way I define the role of a product manager is that it's a very strategic and business role that focuses on finding compelling, competitive, and profitable solutions to market problems. And I want to start decomposing this such that we start with the market problems. And the word market is the key word here. You have to ask yourself, so where does this market reside? The market does not reside on fancy charts on PowerPoint slides. The market does not reside in your conference rooms or in your office. The market resides where your target customers hang out. So if you're selling to consumers, you need to figure out where they are. So if it's offline, they may be buying from brick and mortar stores. If they are online, they might be buying on e-commerce sites. If you're building software or products for the educational market, which caters to, let's say, the users are students and teachers. They hang out at educational institutions, and you need to spend time understanding their lives. If you're doing products for, say, the biotech or the pharma industry, you need to figure out where these target customers hang out. Same thing goes with construction workers. So the market, this is one of the key takeaways I want you to walk away with. The market does not reside in your office. The market resides outside your office. You need to figure out where your target customers hang out, and you need to spend time with them to clearly understand their needs. Now, what is compelling? Customers have a lot of problems, but you need to figure out which problems are painful enough for these customers that they are desperate for a solution, that whoever provides a great solution for them, they're willing to open their wallets and pay you money. Those are the problems you want to solve. You don't want to solve every customer problem, because some of the problems are not even painful enough, such that even if you solve them, they're not going to use your solution because there's no urgency of need. Let's look at competitive. You have to think about what is the unique value proposition that your solution provides over your competition. When I talk to product managers, they sometimes say that, oh, we have no competition, this is a new market. To me, that's a fallacy, because lack of competition means only two things. There is no large market for this product, or B, it's only a matter of time when competitors would show up. So whatever advantage you have is really short-lived. Now, if that is the case, you need to run as fast as you can to build an advantage. Your competitors are not going to sit tight if you have identified a large, new, untapped market. Because let's think about the iPhone, right? When it came out, it was the first smartphone to the market. People were wowed. There was absolutely no competition when it was announced. How long did it take for it to have competition? Think about how many smartphones are there now, right? So the advantage that iPhone had was not the fact that it was the first smartphone in the market, but it was the unique value proposition that it provided, the user experience that it provided, such that people are willing to shell out like $600 to buy an iPhone every year. So it's not lack of competition, it's a unique value proposition and the superiority of their product that is helping them win. I also want to caution you here. In the sense, being aware of competitive moves is extremely important for product managers, but do not get obsessed by the competitors. Instead, obsess over your customers and their problems a lot more than your competitors, because customers' needs evolve over time, and you want to do a better job where you get in front of those needs, understand them well, and solve them before your competitors would. Now, after you have discovered these compelling competitive problems and come up with competitive solutions, you need to become profitable, because no business would survive over the long term if you cannot find a path to profitability. You need to figure out what the business model would be that'll get you there. Now, everybody would say that, but look at Uber, Lyft, and other startups, or Flipkart, or Ola, or any of the other big companies. Yes, startups do sacrifice profits over growth, but at some point in time, if you want to survive for the long term, you need to turn a profit. Think about all the large companies we know about. Infosys, they have 5,000 crores in profits. Microsoft, they have $37 billion in profit. Amazon, 12 billion in profit. Zoho, they estimated $70 million in profits. So eventually, if you want to remain in business and continue serving your customers, you will need to find a path to profitability, and product managers have an important role to play. Last but not the least, I want to make sure that you understand that it's a strategic and business role. Being a product manager does not mean or does not mean that you're just an agile expert. A product manager, agile to me is a product development methodology. It's an engineering methodology. It's not a product management methodology. Product managers still have to discover market problems. They still have to set the product vision and strategy. Where do we want to go? What does the product look like 5 years from now? And what's the strategy we are going to come up with to realize that vision? There's nothing agile there, right? All of that still needs to happen, whether you're doing agile or waterfall. But how you develop solutions in an iterative fashion so that you can quickly respond to customer needs and changing markets is the agile part. So if you focus on becoming an expert only on the last piece, which is delivering the solution, how you create the solution, then you're forgetting the big role that you have to play on the front end, which is the strategic and business roles in finding customer problems and figuring out what your value propositions need to be and what your business model needs to be. And I'm not saying that once you figure that out, it's set in stone. It needs to evolve as well, because the market would evolve, your customer needs would evolve. 80% of new products fail. This has not changed over the number of years. And the number one reason, according to Fast Company, that new products fail is because you come up with products that customers say, I have no idea why I would want to use it. There is no clear or compelling relevance to people's lives. Solving problems that do not have a large market of users who have the problem are examples of those are like technologies looking for a problem to solve. It's perfectly fine if you start from the beginning saying that this is a niche market, and we are going to stay with the niche market. We don't want to grow big. We want to continue focusing on this untapped small market. That is perfectly fine, as long as you have clarity on who you're going after. But even in that case, make sure that you have a clear and compelling relevance to people's lives. So now let's talk about 5 things you do not want to do when you're trying to discover these unmet customer needs. First one, build products based on ideas in your office. Often you would hear things like, I used to do what my customer does, and I used to do that 10 years back, so I know what problems we need to solve. Or I think my customer wants to do this. Whenever I hear I think, I am cautious. Because is it based on facts? Can you tell me who you have talked to? And can you help me understand why this problem is painful enough? The reason it doesn't work is because you're making an assumption that nothing has changed in 10 years since you have done this job, or the way you do things is how everyone does things. You can start there, but as long as you have methods to validate it with a larger audience, with actual customers that are doing the task now, not 10 years back, that is fine. But unless you do that, this is an absolute no-no. You visit just a couple of friendly customers or visit the same customers over and over. For example, oh, Infosys and TCS are my biggest paying customers. Let me go and talk to them. They are the most experienced in this field. So let me just ask them what we should do. Here are the reasons why it won't work. These customers, especially if they are friendly, if they are friends, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes product managers will go and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? And they're just going to say, oh, looks good, sounds good. The problem with that is they do not have the skin in the game. Means if Google or Microsoft comes and talks to me and says, hey, we are thinking about this idea, what do you think about it? I'm like, sounds great. Because I have not given it any thought, and I don't want to say no, because it could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I, as a customer, does not have skin in the game. Nor did Google and Microsoft in that case, or any other company, Zoho or whoever else, has instead, if they have not asked me, hey, what kind of problems do you have? Instead, they come to me and say, hey, what do you think of this feature, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to focus on the problems before you ask folks for their input on the solutions that you come up with. Large companies also could get you to build what they want, and that may not be applicable to a broader market. In that case, what happens is you just become an extended software development center for these customers. So you need to be careful of that. The next thing is you ask customers leading questions. Hey, do you think that this feature X is a good idea? Of what features do you think you want us to build next? Or will you buy this product? Right? You want to avoid this. And why do you want to avoid this? Whenever I hear the word feature, the word that comes to me is that you're in the solution space. For you, your product is the center of the universe. But please do not believe that your product is the center of the customer's universe. What is keeping the customers awake are the problems that they have to solve. Your product is not the center of their universe. Their products, their customers are. Even if you're building enterprise software like Salesforce or Google products from Google or Microsoft products or from products from Zoho, and let's say your customers have a huge ecosystem built around it to support their business, you will still be a small part of the customer's universe, because what they are still focused on are problems like questions that I've shown here. Hey, how do I solve my warranty issues? How can I increase production to meet this growing demand? How do I reduce customer support costs? How do I increase revenue? How do I respond to this competitive threat? How can I hire and recruit great talent? That is what is keeping them awake, and you need to figure out which of these problems can you solve such that they will pay you money to solve them. So customers live in the product space, a problem space, and you as a product manager want to live there. You don't want to live in the solution space. And the moment you ask the customer, what do you think of this feature? What features should be built? You're actually living in the solution space and not in the problem space. So that is something that you want to definitely avoid. Last,
Hi, Gopal, are you there? We are unable to hear you. Hi, Gopal, can you hear me? Seems there is some internet issue. Please wait. I'll just get it sorted. Hey, everyone, please wait for a minute. Gopal is just joining us back.
hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, we can
because
hear you.
sorry about that, my computer crashed, and I have a
No.
Mac, believe it or not. What is the probability that's going to happen? I'm just, I sincerely apologize for this. It has never happened to me, but it just crashed. So we were on slide. Ankita, can you give me control to share my screen?
Sure. Sure.
Have you done it?
Yep, I've done, Gopal.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the fourth question is, you don't want to ask them convoluted questions. Do we build these features? Will this work for you? And the last thing is, even if you do customer interviews, and I'll tell you how many customer interviews you really need to do not immediately start solving the problem just based on customer interviews, because customer interviews are qualitative research. That is a great thing to understand what problems to go after, but you still need to follow it up with quantitative research such that you understand how many other customers have this problem. Even if you randomly selected the customers to interview, you still have a chance that you may have hit problems just these customers have. So to avoid that trap, you will need to follow it up with quantitative research such as surveys and so on. So let's now talk about the 5 right ways to do it according to based on my experience. I'm basing this on experience where I have visited a ton of companies, B2B software. It became an industry standard. We completely disrupted the 3D product design industry. And I personally did 300 customer interviews per year globally. And the team had to get out of the building. Each of my product managers had to get out of the building one day a month. They had to visit 2 customers, which is 6 visits a quarter, which means that I had 10 people on my team. That is 60 visits a quarter times 4. Before you realize, we were talking to 250 different customers, understanding how they do product design and what are the problems that are keeping them awake. So we were extremely customer obsessed at SolidWorks. I work for another startup which is growing exponentially now. We were building restaurant technology solutions, thousands of US restaurants. It's a Boston unicorn now with a $4.7 billion valuation, and it is growing like crazy. And we did the same thing at Toast, going and talking to restaurant owners, going and talking to people who work at restaurants as to how they use the POS system. The first thing you want to do right is wear the hat of an explorer. You do not want to go in as a sales closer or a troubleshooter. If you're going to a customer site to help them close the deal, to help answer those final questions to close the deal, it does not count as a customer discovery call or an interview. The reason is, when you're trying to close a deal, your sole objective, the reason they are bringing you there, is to overcome any objections that the customer has. If you're going there to troubleshoot problems customers are having, then your objective there is to find workarounds so that the customer can be up and running. That does not count either. I'm not saying that the information that you may glean from sales calls or these troubleshooting visits are not helpful, because you definitely need to keep track of them. But when you're doing visits to find or uncover unmet needs, you need to be in a completely different mindset. You need to be in the mindset of an explorer. You should be willing to have your customer tell you the way it is. What are the problems they're facing? Where does your product fall apart and why it's not solving those problems? Or if you're talking to prospects, you don't want the discussion to be about your product, but you want the discussion to be about their problems. Number 2, I've talked to you about problem space and solution space. You want to spend 10 times more time deeply understanding customer problems than designing solutions. This is difficult to do. It's easier said than done. I've been doing this for 20+ years, and I still catch myself that I jump into the solution space. The reason this happens is because we as humans are creative, our brains are creative, and we quickly want to get into the solution space, which is where the creativity lies. And that's what excites us. But what you always want to do, the first question that you as a product manager, if somebody comes with you with an idea, the first question you want to ask them is, what is the customer problem you're trying to solve? If you ask that one single question, you have pushed the audience and yourself into the problem space. And unless you understand that very well, then you can evaluate whether the proposed idea is a good one or not. Whether that is the cheapest thing that you can build, is that the fastest thing that you can build, or you can build a prototype or a mock-up and put in front of some of the customers. So make sure you spend more time in the problem space than designing solutions. How do you go about doing this? If you're going to visit customers, you need to create a discussion guide of open-ended questions focused on the problem space. Examples could be, tell me more about your business. What are the challenges you're facing? What is harder than it should be that it is costing you money, time, or resources? And you also want to find out how often do these problems occur? Do they occur once a year, once in a few months, once a week, multiple times a week, every day? Is it a death by 1,000 paper cuts? And also understand how much are these problems costing you? Because it's kind of gives you a window into the value you would deliver to the customer if you solve the problem by asking that question. And what will happen if this problem is solved? Again, that is giving you a window into the value that you can deliver for the customer if you solve this problem to the customer. And if you price the product based on the value delivered, then it would make sense to the customer as well. So, but you need to find out what is the value you could deliver by solving this problem. Because when you ask the question, the customer may say, I have this problem. But when you say that what will happen if this problem is solved, the customer may realize that the problem is not important enough. So let me give you an example from my experience. So I was visiting restaurant owners in Miami and Houston, and I had those open-ended questions as part of my interview. And I was working on the reporting and analytics product, and my visits were just to find out what are the reporting and analytics needs that customer restaurant owners have. So one of the questions I asked them was, imagine that you're driving in your car. You're not at the restaurant. What pieces of data would you like to know about how the restaurant is doing right here, right there and then? Very open-ended questions. It cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. It does not, it's like an essay question. Every answer that you get would be different from somebody else, right? It's not a multiple choice. Here's what I heard. I was expecting them to tell me things like, I want to know my sales trend, how are the sales doing today compared to yesterday or compared to the same day last week. I was thinking about numbers and charts and means trend lines or whatever else, right? What you're seeing on the screen is what is known as the kitchen display systems. I'm not sure if restaurants in India also have started having this. This you find in some of the upscale restaurants here. And you would see this in McDonald's, you would see this in Burger King or Taco Bell or whatever, which is high volume, where it displays all the different orders that are still to be processed by the kitchen. And you also see colors that indicate to you how long the order has been waiting, if it has exceeded the average time the restaurant wants to take to fulfill the order. They said, I want to see how backed up the kitchen is so that I can ask more people to come in if it's starting to get backed up. For a restaurant, outside of food costs, labor cost is their #1 expense. So I asked them, okay, great. How do you solve this problem today? This is something you really want to understand, because oftentimes your biggest competition is status quo. They're very happy with the way they're doing things. Yeah, they know it's painful, but even if you come up with a solution, That status quo is your competition, not some other competitor you have. You also want to make sure that they are indeed solving this problem and it's painful enough, which equates to the willingness to pay if you come up with a solution. So questions you could ask is, can you walk me through the current workflow? Hey, what solutions have you tried? What worked? What did not? What would you take to switch if a better solution is available, which will give you an idea of how much inertia you might experience, the competition being status quo. Hey, whose budget is going to pay for this, is paying for the current solution? Also gives you an idea if they have a budget, and who is mostly impacted by these problems, which will give you an idea of who the decision makers would be to buy your product. So in my case, I asked them, how do you solve this problem today? What they are doing is they have security cameras for the restaurant. They're taking one of the security cameras and pointing it to the kitchen display system. And the security camera comes with a mobile app, because of which they can pull it up and they can see this. Now, what is displayed on the screen is actually software. It has nothing to do with hardware. So we as Toast can very easily take the display of the kitchen display systems and show it on a mobile app. But it told me that this was an important problem for them, that they have gone out of the way to buy hardware, make their security cameras point to it, and they're continuously using the mobile app of the security camera to keep an eye on this. So that's why it's extremely important to figure out why they're solving this, how they're solving this problem. The last but not the least, you want to observe the unspoken and ask the questions. Customers will not always tell you what problems they have. Especially if you're visiting the customer, keep an eye out. Ask them for a tour of their office or of their manufacturing floor or whatever that might be. If I'm developing software for the grocery industries, and if I ask consumers, hey, how do you carry groceries from the car to, let's say I'm developing hardware, something. How do you carry your groceries from the car to the house? Unless you observe this, they're not going to tell you how much of a pain it is, right? So there are companies that just go and sit in the grocery parking lot and just watch customers. I've heard Toyota and Honda and all those guys did that to see how customers load groceries into the car when they were designing the vans. And they found out that it's such a pain to open the trunk to put the groceries in. So they pressed a button or they did the foot thing so that the door would automatically open. If you're building tax software for accountants, this is what their office looks like. It's not as great as your office, but get out and observe. If you're on the manufacturing floor, you may find drawings that are all marked up. And asking questions when you see this is just going to open up a completely different world of problems that customer may not have mentioned at all. So observe the unspoken, because that is extremely important to come up with problems that the customer may not even realize that they have. So how many customers do you need to visit? Per vertical, if you visit anywhere from 5 to 12 customers, you will discover 70% of their needs. 20 customers, 80 to 85, 30 customers, 90 to 95. So you quickly see how this plateaus. So don't think that this is like a survey where you have to visit hundreds of customers. Visit randomly selected 5 to 12 target customers, and you would have discovered 70% of their needs. And you could start from there and then continue visiting customers. Don't do this as once in a year event. Continue to visit customers, because it always helps, keeps you grounded in reality rather than sitting in your ivory tower. But to discover unmet needs in a particular area, 5 to 12 customers per vertical. How do you find them? If it's B2B, industry associations, meetups, sales teams can identify it, customer support can tell you, existing customers. B2C, friends, family, your LinkedIn networks, you can find them in coffee shops, or you can even ask existing customers saying, do you have friends or family that could also use this product that I could interview? Okay, LinkedIn and Quora, especially if you're in B2B, I have found that it's a valuable resource, because you can find out who is posting things in the kind of subject that you're interested in. If you're looking for product managers to talk to, go into LinkedIn or go into Quora and see who's posting product management questions. You want to develop software for laboratories, go and find out lab technicians that you may be interested in talking to. Couple of words of caution. Please stay away from prospects in the sales funnel, because I'll guarantee you that if that sale is lost, sales is going to blame the product manager. So make sure before you visit some customer or get on the phone with a customer that they're not in your pipeline, sales pipeline. Second word of caution, which I already mentioned, qualitative research is necessary but not sufficient. You have to follow it up with surveys so that you can use a larger set of target customers before you start thinking about what solutions to build. Now, you did all this. You did customer interviews, you visited customers in their offices, you got on the phone with them, you did web conference, all of that. That's awesome. But unless you take action on that knowledge, it's worthless, right? If you take action without the knowledge, that is useless as well. But if you have the knowledge and don't take action, that is absolutely worthless. You've just wasted time, your team's time, and customer time. So how do we avoid that? Document the insights and socialize with your stakeholders. I call this customer capital. This is how you build credibility in your organization. When I do this, people understand that it's no longer Gopal's opinion, it's opinion of the customers that he has talked to. And I include anecdotes, I include customer notes in my deck that I present to my internal stakeholders. Because if I do that enough number of times, the next time I tell them that we need to do something, they completely realize that I'm basing it on market data or customer data or talking to customers, and it's not my opinion. Because if all you have is an opinion, then the person who has the highest title, their opinion will win. You also want to take this as an opportunity to take the insights that you have gleaned and make sure your team, engineering, QA, design team, whoever it is, deeply understands the problems that are worth solving. And you want to come up with a list of possible solutions as a cross-functional effort. If you are in an engineering organization where the engineering does exactly what the product manager says, I want this, and they will build this without thinking, you're not in a productive product organization. Effective product organizations are where product managers clearly define the problems, the what and the why. What problems do we need to solve? Why do we need to solve it? And what are the user expectations of a solution? And what would success look like? And leave the engineering team, leave the design team to design the best interaction experience, leave the engineering team to figure out how they will build the solution and the architecture of the solution. Then you're working in a very productive product organization. Make your customers your dev partners. Frequently validate the solution with them. Start with wireframes. Customers love to be part of this because a lot of times companies go and talk to customers and they feel that whatever they told these product managers just goes into a black hole. So if you make a distinct difference of going and telling them, saying, hey, remember when I came and visited you, you guys told me about these problems. We are thinking about how to solve it. Would you be willing to take a look at it and give it feedback? Boy, they are so happy. You have just created a competitive differentiation because they feel that they have been listened to. Start small, release, learn, and iterate. Don't go for a big bang solution. And this is why frequently validating with customers with wireframes and working prototypes helps, because it's very easy to make those changes because not a single line of code has been written. Do usability testing. There are tons of tools available which are online, whether it's usertesting.com or there are a bunch of competitors for them as well. You can do working prototypes using InVision, where you can have click-throughs and so on and so forth. So technology is not a limiting factor anymore. Look at it. I'm sitting here in Boston and having a live conversation with you. You are in India, you might be in Europe or wherever else. technology is on your side. So 5 takeaways I want you to walk away with. Get out of the building, and I'll tell you in a second why. Focus only on the painful problems that customers will pay for solutions. Qualitative research with 5 to 6, 12 customers to deeply understand the problems so that you can develop customer empathy. You absolutely have to share these insights with your team and act on them. Otherwise, you have just wasted time. And frequently validate with customers. Treat them as your dev partners. The reason is customer needs evolve, the market evolves, especially in the tech industry. Your competitors are continuously changing their strategies. So you need to make sure that you're in close touch with these with your customers so that you're kept abreast of all these changes that are happening. So those are the 5 takeaways that I want you to walk away with. And if you remember nothing, remember this. No one in your office will ever open their wallets to buy your products. The people who do live outside your office. So get out of the building and talk to those folks. It's perfectly fine to have opinions inside the 4 walls of your office. But you as a product manager, it's your job to get out of the building and represent that customer who's willing to pay you money in your office. You are the voice of the customer. And the customer does not live in your office. I cannot emphasize this enough. That's all I had. Thank you so much for attending. My email address is here, gopal.shenoy@gmail.com. I have a blog, productmanagementtips.com, but I'll be very frank with you, I have not blogged in a while. But there is still a ton of content. I blogged for about, I don't know, 7, 8 years. So there's a ton of content there, which is still valuable. I have not had the time to continue blogging, but I encourage you to go and look at the blog as well. At this point in time, I would open it up for Q&A. Ankita?
Thank you, Gopal. Yeah, thank you, Gopal. Let's just begin the Q&A session. The first question is by Nagarajan. He's asking how to identify and schedule frequent exploration visits with prospective customers. Why would they be ready to entertain us? That is, what value would the discussion deliver for them?
My first reaction to it is most of the customers out there are desperate that somebody would listen to them because what they are sick and tired of being talked to. Hey, I have this product, why don't you buy it? I have this, why don't you buy it? They're all continuously being talked to. It's not even a dialogue. It's a monologue from the company to the customers. So you need to position it. And even today, what I tell in my introductory email is, I'll promise you, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to talk to people, talk to you to understand your life better at work. Second thing, what I mentioned is LinkedIn. Try to find someone who they are connected to, a common connection that can make an introduction for you. And again, when you ask for an introduction, send a short blurb that the person who's making the introduction can use. And in that blurb, be absolutely clear. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Offer to buy them lunch, offer to meet them over dinner, whatever that is. If they are at a conference, offer to meet them then. A conference is a bad word. Means during these days because a lot of conferences are getting canceled, but try to find out where they hang out, try to find an opportunity to spend some time with them. And I'll tell you, humans have opinions, customers have opinions. You just have to ask for it. Nobody does. Most of the people just talk to them about what they're building, what their solutions are. Nobody's asking them, hey, can you tell me what's keeping you awake? That is what is in it for the customer. Because build the relationships. People want to be helping you to be part of that solution.
Sure. Thank you, Gopal. The second question is by Rohit. He's asking, as a startup, how do you ensure at the beginning of the journey that the product that you are building is profitable. You have made assumptions in your business case, but those could be wrong even if you have done your research.
Yes, you don't think about profitability at the very beginning. To clarify what I said is, you will eventually need a path to profitability. You don't want to worry about profits right at the start, because you don't even know if this, as you said, if this product has legs, right? Means a lot of startups focus on growth and not on profits right from the word go. Your first objective is to find a repeatable, scalable business model for a product that has a market. So I totally agree. Profit is not the first thing you would think about, but eventually you will need a path to profitability, and that is where product managers have a role to play. Because more you know about the customers, more you would know what value you're delivering, more you will be able to know how to price your products such that you can talk to the value it's delivering and why it is going to cost X. And then eventually that will help you if you figure out a way to figure out the path to profitability.
Sure. The next question is by Akshay, who's saying sometimes the customers do not exactly know what they want. So if we present them a solution, they're most likely to accept it, but this does not make the product scalable solution. How do we tackle this?
Don't provide them with solutions. Any customer, ask them open-ended questions. Let's say you are in human resources, right? You're building software for human resources, and let's say it's payroll related. If you go and ask them, can you help me understand, can you walk me through how you do payroll, right? They will be able to explain that to you, because that's what they do. Actually, they'll be very happy to explain to you because they take pride in what they do. And you're asking them to describe something that they are experts in. And listen and have follow-up questions based on what they say. You may hear things like, I open my Excel spreadsheet, then I go to this particular software, I export into as a CSV file, I import into Excel, and then I do a pivot table. And when I do the pivot table, I have to make sure that it doesn't do this, because of which I have to do whatever, right? You ask them, what are the other things you can say is, okay, great, how is that working for you? And they might say, oh, it's working awesome. What are the problems you had last week? Did you have any problems last week or last month? What are some of the common problems that you have, right? Push the customer to think harder about the problems. Push the customer, ask these open-ended questions. They're not leading questions, because you're not asking them, do you think this would solve the problem? Or do you have this problem? Yes or no? They'll say no. Instead say, can you tell me about the drawbacks that you have? What takes up this time when you do it this way? Make sense?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gopal. The next question is by Atul Batra. He's asking, if I'm in India and all my customers are in the US, traveling often is not an option. How best would I bridge the gap?
So if you're in B2B, one of the things you could do is form a customer advisory council and get some of these customers who are not your customers and give them means, or do it via Zoom. See, you're going to be forced with this situation, this problem right now, because everything is getting clamped down. I've been asked to work from home. So even if you have a travel budget, you're not going anywhere for the rest of 2020. So the way to do it is everything is going to be virtual. The thing to do is to figure out who are the customers that you want to have, that you could bounce off ideas from, understand the problems, who you can talk to, who would be very involved, who could be thought leaders as to where the industry is going, what are the problems that are going to crop up. Right now, if you ask, there are tons of experts. I could be an expert as to what will happen if a pandemic strikes, right? So you need to find out who those customers are and ask them for a half-an-hour meeting. Don't ask them for 2 hours or anything. 30 minutes will typically end up to be 45 minutes, because if you get the customer excited to talk to you, they will not stop and they'll be willing to give you more time. Now, once that is done, the final question I ask them is, this has been absolutely awesome. I'm going to think about it. And if I am also talking to other customers, if I come up with other questions, would you be willing to talk to me, or can I get in touch with you? And 99% of the time, they'll say yes. Those are the techniques I've used. And one of the things, if you start a customer advisory board or whatever else, one thing I caution you is, don't fill it up with friendly customers. Don't fill it up with the same customers. What you want to do is, maybe on an annual basis, you want to get 50% of folks removed from the advisory board, keep the best 50%, and depending on who's participating, because a lot of people get excited to participate in these things and they don't show up or they get busy. So keep the 50% that are active and bring in a new 50% so that it's rotating and you're not listening to the same customers or prospects.
Thanks, Gopal, for answering that question. The next is by Rayudu. He's asking, we get huge amount of inputs from several customers in thousands. How do you synthesize what is right and what to prioritize? What approaches do you suggest?
We used to have this problem at SolidWorks because we had a customer base of hundreds of thousands of users. And just because a customer submitted a feature request doesn't mean that you jump over hoops and deliver the feature request. The techniques that we didn't have at that time, because I'm talking about 97 to 2007, we didn't have those platforms. Nowadays, there are tons of platforms where you can have the customer submit their feature request and have the community vote on it, so that you get a strong signal as to which are the top 10 problems that you need to focus on. A lot of companies are doing that. Initially, there was concern that if we do this, our competitors will know. Forget about the competitors, focus on the customers, right? Because it is not, it is the solution and the value that you would provide that would distinguish you from customers. Because customers, these problems are not top secret by any means. It is how you solve them that would make the differentiation. And that's what I would encourage. And as a product manager, means customers used to ask me, are you going to only implement if I buy 100 licenses of SolidWorks? And I said, I don't really care how many licenses of SolidWorks you have, or even if you're a SolidWorks customer. I evaluate it based on the value, or means I can look at the problem and the solution you're proposing, and I have enough expertise to figure out if I can extrapolate that to a wider audience, or go and ask a wider audience if they have these problems. So your domain knowledge as a product manager, or your knowledge of the market as a product manager, is also extremely important.
Thanks, Gopal. The next question is by John.
One other thing, you may say that these are thousands of feature requests. If I randomly pick 100 or 200 of them and go through it one by one, what you will also find out is that clusters form where many of these things are talking about the same issue. So you will see a pattern and a bunch of clusters forming. So those 1,000 things may become 10 problems. So that is another way to look at it. Yes, go ahead.
Sure. The next question is by John. He's asking, how do you identify if a customer will pay for a solution?
Don't ask them. Never ask the customer, will you pay for this product? Because right now the world is full of products that are free, right? There are freemium models and so on. What you want to focus on, what is it costing the customer? What is the value that you will deliver if you solve the problem? Figure that out first. Now, I have also asked a question in an indifferent way. I don't ask them, will you buy this product? I ask a question saying, one of the things that I have to eventually figure out is how I would price this product, right? What are the things that you think I should think about? So I was working on an HR software product and I asked the question and they said, interesting thought. Now they are interested because this is a puzzle now for them, right? They said, you know what, when I have to post a job on monster.com, it costs me $150. If I have to post it on Glassdoor or LinkedIn, it costs me this. And then they say the other places where I post is something, and now it kind of gave me a ballpark as to how many digits are in the equation. Is it 2-digit number? Is it 3-digit number, 4-digit number, 5-digit number, whatever? That's for small business products. In the case of enterprise, also involve your sales team or your sales engineering team and ask them, what do you think? Should we add this to an existing product? Do you think that can be sold as a separate product? Because they have great insights as to the objections or how customers think in terms of what they will buy. So involve them. But focus on the value. Keep asking the question to the customer saying, if we solve this problem for you, what will happen? They might say it'll save us 4 days of time every month. Now it kind of gives you an idea of what that cost might be. Go ahead.
Yeah. The next question is by Sangeeta. She's saying, how do you handle the demands related to product roadmap from the decision makers at customer side?
Customer site. Forget about who is asking for the request, if it's from the decision makers or if it is just an individual user. I always start with the product vision. Where do you as a company want your product to be? And I have told no to a bunch of customers as well. And I follow up with a no, explaining them why. Why is it that we won't do it? And saying that is not something that a lot of our customers want, and that's not the direction we are interested in going. Be very honest with them. They appreciate that. If you just tell them no or don't tell them anything, they are thinking this guy, no matter what I tell him, he says no. He doesn't even give me a reason why I'm saying no. But stick to your product vision and a product strategy. I'm not saying it's set in stone, adjust it as needed, but you have to have a strategy as to how you're going to tackle these problems and which problems you're going to work on. Now, if it is one of your highest paying customers and they say that we are going to churn if you don't do it, whatever, it is above the pay grade of a product manager, it's up to product leadership or the business leadership to figure out what needs to be done and do what needs to be done. It's not cut and dry. It all depends on whether it's a single feature request, which is very easy to implement, or it solves a simple problem that kills them 1,000 times a day. It's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, or is it something that happens once in a blue moon and this customer is playing hardball because it's a sales situation and it's going to be a large initiative, huge development effort is needed. So you have to value that and get the right people involved. But involve the customer and explain the rationale behind your decision. Go ahead, Ankita.
Sure. Hitesh is asking whether customer segmentation is needed for customer interviews.
Yes, very important. You need to figure out who your target customers are and try to hone in on those customer targets. Means if you don't know who they are, start with a broad brush, right? But at least get an understanding of which verticals you're going to go after. If you're going to go after the healthcare vertical, go and talk to people in healthcare. And you can say, you know what, to understand, I'm going to talk to small healthcare companies, medium-sized healthcare companies, large enterprise-sized healthcare companies. And then you may discover that only the small guys and the medium guys may have this problem, and then go and talk to more people there, because now you have identified who you want to target. But you absolutely need to do some kind of segmentation. It may be very rough initially, but as you get more information, hone in, because that'll help you position the product, help you understand which markets and what customer personas you're going after.
Looking at the clock, I'm keeping this question as the last one. So the last question of the session is by Rishikesh. How many customers I should meet before moving to next stage for product development?
I don't know what next stage of product development means. What happens, I'll just assume that, let's say, as I said, if you visit 5 to 12 customers and you start seeing emerging pattern that all these guys are talking about the same thing, now you go and do a survey of a larger set of audiences to make sure that the signal is indeed strong. And if you've got a good signal, then I would go into the validation mode where I may do some wireframes as to what the potential solution could be, working with your team, try different things, put a couple of solutions in front of the customers and ask them to react to it. Because now they know what the context is, because you're starting the conversation saying, remember when I come and visited you, these are the problems you said. Here is some ways that we're thinking about solving the problem. Can you please give us your honest feedback? Okay.
Thank you, Gopal. Thank you so much, Gopal, for this great session and this webinar, plus the importance of visiting a customer, understanding their pain points, and building solutions for their problems holds a lot of importance. This will definitely help in developing customers' empathy and help us in building fantastic products in future. Thank you so much for your time and efforts.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to be part of this NASSCOM webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Gopal. Thank you, everyone.